Ancient aliens. The theory that extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in prehistoric times and either directly built or assisted in the construction of monuments like the pyramids, Stonehenge, and the Nazca Lines. Popularized enormously by the History Channel series of the same name, it essentially argues that ancient humans weren't capable of these feats on their own. Archaeologists find this deeply condescending to ancient civilizations, who demonstrably had the tools, labor organization, and ingenuity to build everything attributed to aliens. The theory has become so mainstream it barely registers as fringe anymore, which is probably why it sits at the very top. Unexplained booming sounds heard from the sky, reported all over the world for centuries, called Seneca guns along the U.S. East Coast, Barisal guns in Bangladesh, mist poofers in Europe. They occur in areas with no obvious geological or meteorological cause, are sometimes accompanied by vibrations, and have no universally accepted explanation. Proposed causes include sonic booms from military aircraft, methane releases from ocean floors, atmospheric acoustic ducting, and meteor explosions. The conspiracy angle frames them as evidence of secret weapons testing, underground construction, or the Earth itself making sounds it shouldn't be making. The Backrooms. Originally an internet creepypasta, a single eerie image of an empty, yellow-carpeted office space with flickering fluorescent lights, posted to a forum in 2019 with the caption describing it as what you see if you knocklip out of reality. It exploded into a massive collaborative mythology describing an infinite network of liminal spaces accessible by accidentally passing through walls in the real world. It's less a conspiracy theory and more a modern folk horror tradition, but it sits here because it taps into the genuine unease people feel about empty institutional spaces and the idea that reality has edges you can accidentally fall through. Sea People. A genuine historical mystery. Around 1200 BC, the Bronze Age collapsed catastrophically. Within 50 years, almost every major civilization in the Eastern Mediterranean either vanished or was severely disrupted. Egypt survived but was badly weakened. The Hittite Empire ceased to exist entirely. Egyptian records blame raiders they called the Sea Peoples, depicted in carvings at Medinet Habu. Who these people were, where they came from, and whether they caused the collapse or were fleeing it remains one of the most debated questions in ancient history. The conspiracy angle frames the Sea Peoples as evidence of a sophisticated lost civilization deliberately erased from history, or as survivors of Atlantis. Pharaoh Akhenaten. Akhenaten was a genuinely radical Egyptian pharaoh who ruled around 1350 BC and upended millennia of Egyptian religious tradition by declaring that only one god, Aten, the sun disk, existed, effectively inventing monotheism a century before Moses. He built an entirely new capital city, Amarna, from scratch and moved the entire court there. After his death, his successors systematically erased him from all records, smashing his statues and chiseling his name off monuments. His unusual depictions in art, elongated skull, wide hips, strange proportions, have made him a magnet for theories claiming he was an alien, a human-alien hybrid, or the origin of all monotheistic religion including Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Some theories directly link him to Moses. Building 7. World Trade Center Building 7 was a 47-story skyscraper that collapsed on September 11, 2001, approximately 7 hours after the Twin Towers, despite not being struck by any aircraft. It was the first steel-framed high-rise in history to collapse primarily due to fire, according to the official NIST investigation. For many people, this fact alone is suspicious enough, no plane, yet it fell symmetrically at near free-fall speed. Controlled demolition is the most common alternative theory. The official explanation involves fires burning uncontrolled for hours, igniting a critical column, causing progressive collapse. Building 7 remains the most technically compelling piece of evidence cited by 9/11 skeptics. Quantum realm. In legitimate physics, the quantum realm refers simply to the scale at which quantum mechanical effects dominate: subatomic particles, superposition, entanglement, and so on. In conspiracy and esoteric circles, it has become a catch-all term for a hidden dimension of reality accessible through meditation, psychedelics, near-death experiences, or other altered states. Some theories claim government programs like MK Ultra were actually attempts to weaponize access to the quantum realm. Others link it to the Mandela effect, claiming that quantum branching is literally causing our shared reality to shift. The actual physics of the quantum realm is strange enough without embellishment, but the embellishments are considerably more dramatic. Phoenician colonization. A real historical topic that has been significantly exaggerated in fringe circles. The Phoenicians were genuinely extraordinary seafarers who established colonies across the Mediterranean and almost certainly reached Britain and West Africa. There is credible evidence they may have circumnavigated Africa. The conspiracy extension claims they reached the Americas thousands of years before Columbus, leaving inscriptions in Brazil and New England, and that this pre-Columbian contact has been systematically suppressed to protect the Columbus narrative and Eurocentric history. Some versions go further, claiming Phoenician or their descendant Carthaginian bloodlines secretly control Western civilization to this day through banking dynasties. Global cooling. In the 1970s, a handful of scientific papers raised concerns about potential global cooling due to aerosol pollution reflecting sunlight. This was never the scientific consensus. Even then, more papers predicted warming than cooling, but it was picked up by popular media. Conspiracy theorists use it as evidence that climate scientists simply invent whatever crisis is convenient, first cooling then warming, and that neither should be believed. It's one of the most effective rhetorical tools in climate denial, despite being a significant misrepresentation of what the science actually said at the time. Voynich manuscript. A genuine and deeply fascinating mystery. The Voynich manuscript is a handwritten, illustrated book carbon-dated to the early 15th century, written entirely in an unknown script that no linguist, codebreaker, or computer analysis has ever successfully decoded. Its illustrations depict unidentifiable plants, naked women in strange pools, astronomical diagrams, and other bizarre imagery. It was purchased by rare book dealer Wilfrid Voynich in 1912 and has defeated every serious attempt at translation since. Theories range from an elaborate hoax to an encrypted herbal compendium to an alien document. The most deflating possibility, that it's a constructed nonsense language, has some statistical support but hasn't been proven either. Skull and Bones Fraternity. A real secret society at Yale University, founded in 1832. Its membership list reads like a who's who of American power, both George Bush's, John Kerry, William Howard Taft, and countless senators, CIA directors, and Supreme Court justices. Initiates reportedly undergo rituals involving lying in a coffin and confessing sexual secrets. The society is real, the membership is real, and the concentration of power among its alumni is real. What's contested is what it means, whether it's simply a powerful networking club for already privileged people, or a more deliberate coordinating mechanism for elite control. Given the documented facts, it sits unusually close to legitimate concern for something on a conspiracy iceberg. Jules Verne. The French science fiction author who wrote Journey to the Center of the Earth, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and From the Earth to the Moon in the 1800s, decades before any of these things were technologically conceivable. The conspiracy theory is that Verne didn't imagine these things but knew about them, that he was connected to secret societies, possibly the Rosicrucians or Priory of Sion, and encoded real suppressed knowledge into his fiction. Journey to the Center of the Earth is read as a literal description of hollow Earth geography. His submarine and space travel stories are taken as evidence he had access to classified technology that wouldn't officially exist for another century. Dead air refers to unexplained gaps, interruptions, or anomalous content in broadcast media. Television and radio signals that go silent, broadcast strange tones, or air inexplicable content. The most famous real example is the Max Headroom broadcast intrusion of 1987, when an unknown person hijacked two Chicago TV signals wearing a Max Headroom mask and broadcast surreal, disturbing content before disappearing. It was never solved. Dead air, in conspiracy theory, also refers to frequencies and channels allegedly used by governments or intelligence agencies to broadcast coded messages, number stations being the real and documented version of this. The theory extends to claims of emergency broadcast system tests containing hidden information. Hidden continents, overlapping with the flat Earth ice wall theory from previous icebergs, but also with a more grounded scientific basis. Zealandia, a genuine submerged continent mostly beneath the Pacific Ocean around New Zealand, was only formally recognized by geologists in 2017. If a continent-sized landmass went officially unrecognized until the 21st century, what else might be hidden? The conspiracy version claims there are fully above-water landmasses deliberately excluded from all maps and satellite imagery, kept secret by governments for resource extraction, military use, or because they are inhabited by populations the world isn't supposed to know about. Civilizations before humans. The hypothesis that one or more intelligent civilizations existed on Earth before Homo sapiens, possibly tens of millions of years ago, and either went extinct, left, or transformed into something unrecognizable. This is distinct from the ancient advanced human civilization, theories and posits genuinely non-human intelligent species predating us entirely. A scientific paper by researchers at NASA and Rochester University, the Silurian hypothesis, published in 2018, actually took this seriously as a thought experiment, asking whether we could detect industrial civilization from 50 million years ago in the geological record, and concluding probably not. The conspiracy angle is that evidence of such civilizations has been found and suppressed. Fire is alive. A fringe philosophical and pseudoscientific position that fire is not a chemical reaction but a living entity, or at minimum that the distinction between living and non-living processes is fundamentally wrong and fire meets the criteria for life. It consumes fuel, produces waste, grows, reproduces via sparks, responds to its environment and dies. This bleeds into animist philosophy and process theology. On its face it sounds absurd, but it sits adjacent to genuinely interesting questions about what distinguishes living from non-living systems, questions that origin of life researchers grapple with seriously. Original Bible. The theory that the Bible as it exists today is a heavily edited, politically sanitized version of a far more radical original text. This has varying levels of credibility depending on the version. It's completely true that biblical canon was assembled and debated over centuries, that the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD made significant decisions about which texts were included, and that documents like the Gnostic Gospels and the Dead Sea Scrolls contain material radically different from canonical scripture. The conspiracy version goes further, claiming entire books were destroyed that described extraterrestrials, advanced ancient technology, or a completely different theology that would undermine the authority of modern organized religion. The Dark Forest Theory. Liu Cixin's solution to the Fermi paradox from his novel The Three-Body Problem. The universe is a dark forest. Every civilization is a hunter, armed, silent, moving carefully. Any civilization that reveals its location risks being destroyed by another civilization that cannot afford to take the chance that the newcomer will eventually become a threat. The rational strategy for every civilization is therefore to stay silent, and, upon detecting another civilization, destroy it immediately before being destroyed. This means the universe should be silent not because we're alone, but because every intelligent species has independently reasoned their way to the same terrifying conclusion. It's fiction, but it has been taken seriously enough by physicists and strategists that some argue we should immediately stop broadcasting signals into space. Presidents are just puppets. The claim that elected heads of state, particularly U.S. presidents, have no real power and serve merely as public faces for unelected, unaccountable groups pulling the strings. The real government is variously identified as the deep state, the Federal Reserve, the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, intelligence agencies, or various combinations thereof. Unlike many conspiracy theories, this one has a non-trivial number of serious political scientists and historians who argue that the influence of unelected power structures on democratic governance is a legitimate concern, even if the puppet framing is reductive. The theory sits at the intersection of genuine political cynicism and full conspiratorial thinking. Antimatter doppelgangers, a fusion of real physics and deep paranoia. In physics, antimatter is real. Every particle has an antimatter counterpart, and when matter meets antimatter, they annihilate. There is a genuine unsolved mystery about why the Big Bang produced more matter than antimatter, since equal amounts should have been created and destroyed each other entirely. The conspiracy fringe theory takes this into the idea that antimatter versions of people, doppelgangers made of antimatter, exist in a mirror reality, and that certain events, disappearances, or personality changes in people are the result of contact or replacement by their antimatter counterpart. It's where real physics becomes unmoored from any scientific grounding. The Great Reset, a real initiative by the World Economic Forum, announced in 2020, describing a post-pandemic reimagining of global economic and social systems towards sustainability and reduced inequality. The conspiracy theory version, which became enormously popular in 2020 and 2021, holds that the Great Reset is the public face of a plan by global elites to use the pandemic as a pretext to permanently restructure society, eliminating private property, enforcing digital surveillance, and establishing a permanent technocratic world government. The slogan, "You will own nothing and be happy," was taken from a WEF promotional video and became the defining image of the theory. The gap between what the WEF actually published and what the conspiracy version describes it as planning is vast, but the real initiative's unfortunate branding gave the theory a genuine anchor point. That is the end for this video. Leave a like for the final part and also subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching.